Yeah. So what is it that you guys do at Vicara?
Yeah, so our company is Vicara Social Development, and I'm going to break that apart. So Vicara is, in its name, it's a transformation. In a very superficial way, Vicara just means transformation of any sorts. But it's also a very deep, it's a very deep word in that it's transformation of a mind in Sanskrit language, which is one of the oldest languages in the world. And that's pretty much embodies what our company is. It's not just transformation on a superficial level, which we do real estate, right? We take land and we build new construction, but we also do real estate in a way that transforms the lives of a lot of people and to a very deep level. So what Vicara Social Development is we're real estate developers, and we do development, market rate development, just like a lot of other developers in the city. The key difference is we take the profits that we make from development as partners. We donate 33% of our profits to the most highly affected places to give to in the world, and for now, those are people living in extreme poverty. So we essentially develop real estate in Philadelphia. We can take 33% of those profits, and we try to help save or improve lives of people living in extreme poverty to the tune of 10,000 people, 100,000 people through a few projects that we have in the city, and we hope to expand this and be able to help millions of people and truly end extreme poverty. So it's interesting that a lot of people ask how we connect real estate development and helping there, and it's quite simple. We're just earning profits to be able to give, and it makes us happy and it makes us energized to work every single day, and that's pretty much in a high level what our company does.
And that's why I really appreciated working with you guys, because I feel like you guys were developers that have a heart and that care about making a local impact. And more so than just taking your funding, the 33% you're referring to, and you're buying mosquito nets, you're helping people prevent blindness, and you're helping in some cases cure blindness. But then if you wanted to also talk about what you're doing locally, I remember us talking on the phone and you were telling me about your seed funding for entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses too.
Yeah, so actually that part it's not local per se. That's actually, there's an organization called Village Enterprise, which is another organization that we work with. They're based in sub-Saharan Africa.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's an organization that provides seed capital specifically for women in sub-Saharan Africa that typically they don't have, whether it's culturally or resource-wise, they're not able to work to support their families. They're usually just at home supporting their families on a day-to-day level, but we basically help fund this organization, Village Enterprise, who creates entrepreneurship programs, and they focus on helping women become entrepreneurs and start families to be more dual income, or for single mothers who don't have access to capital, resources, or maybe the culture doesn't support women entrepreneurs in that village.
Gotcha.
This organization basically facilitates opening not just her up to these resources, but opening up the community and the stereotypes that might fall in the community to push people towards being open to dual income, because it's a huge way for families to lift out of extreme poverty.
100%.
Yeah, no one's not local per se.
Gotcha. Yeah, I kind of thought that it was more of a local thing where you put it into maybe an entrepreneurial fund or something like that. But it sounds like your guys' priorities is really putting money to where it's going to do the most good.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily always mean that it's going to be right here in Philadelphia. It could be in Africa. But then you were just telling me before we started shooting about your guys' great volunteer work and how you're working around the community.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? It's something we struggle with all the time is, real estate in in its core is a very localized industry, right? And especially with development and construction, we don't just operate in a silo. We have a community, we have a block, we have neighbors. I mean, we have the city as a whole. So it is a little bit. It gets a little bit complicated for us in that we're creating wealth in this neighborhood, but then we're shipping money outside of the neighborhood. And at a core for us, we treat all people equally, and we have limited resources. So for us, we have to focus on people living in extreme poverty because we can just help so many more people there. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a local impact. What I like to say is, I started off saying we are developers just like a lot of other developers in the city. But I do think we actually take it a step further. In a traditional real estate model, they say you have 4 quadrants, right? You have your tenants, who for us is our customer. We have our investors and our partners. And then we also have the local community and our neighbors. And then we have ourselves, right? And those are the 4 main stakeholders if you're doing a real estate project. Typically, in the past, you can only maybe appease 3 of the 4 sections. And maybe you're not causing harm to just one, but you're helping 3, and maybe 1 gets neglected a little bit.
Right.
So for example, right, if we did a traditional market rate apartment building, and we tore down a couple row homes and we built this big apartment building. Well, we're doing great for our investors, sure. We're doing great for ourselves because we probably made a lot of money doing it, and we probably built a good product for our tenants. But the local community and the neighbors, were they happy with that? Did we just fuel gentrification to a level that's not supporting everyone?
Right, where you're just kicking out people. And
even though we're kind of like, not involved, and we're kind of just like, okay, this is what we're doing, don't bother me. That is a lot of development. But then there's also like affordable housing, and there's other things that we could be doing. But it also didn't seem like we can appease all 4 quadrants. What we're doing is sacrificing one of those, even though we don't see it as a sacrifice. It might be seen, others will see it as that, but that sacrifice is how we create a win-win for everyone. And the sacrifice is that we're okay as developers with taking less profits. So what does that allow us to do is build higher quality, put more money into the design of the building, into the aesthetics of the building, into the quality of the construction. We don't sacrifice on any of those ends in order to make more profit, and even in order to give more money. We still focus a lot that we need to build high quality, we need to be inclusive, so we do talk to our neighbors, we do treat people with respect. We are friendly in that there's always complications that happen with construction and neighboring buildings.
Sure.
And, what we're going to be doing, we keep a transparent communication there. So we do right by our buildings and what we do as developers. Our investors are happy because we do still prioritize making returns because it keeps us sustainable as a business.
On that, actually, I was going to ask you, so putting 33% of your profits like towards anything, that's not an easy decision to make. One, I was kind of wondering how you guys ended up in that spot, and then 2, I was just curious, like, how does that impact your guys' site selection? How does that, like, what does that look like on your guys' pro firmas, when you're going out like through your Excel documents and saying, okay, well, we can expect to make this much money?
Yeah. So I'll start with your first question, how we got to that. So all 3 of us partners, it's myself, Brady, and Sunil. We all come from the real estate world, different parts of the real estate world, where Sunil and Brady came from working for general contractors. I came from working for a developer. And we all had great experiences. We had great mentors. We had great people that we were working for. And all 3 of us would tell you any day of the week that we loved what we did. And so you would think, yeah, everything's going well. We're getting a lot of freedom in our jobs. We love what we do, and we have great bosses. But all three of us still, felt after doing a couple cycles of projects, we felt we felt a lack of energy, and we felt a lack of purpose of why we were doing this. And that's never good, because even though we loved what we were doing, if you lack purpose and you lack energy, well, it made the work a little bit tough for us to do, and we weren't putting our best foot forward.
Sure.
And we had to sit on that for a while. And eventually, after a long process, we decided that one way that what we should do is give back and help people.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we were going to be more happy with the work that we were doing. But it was very difficult for us to connect that to our existing skills and to real estate. And long story short, the way we were able to connect it to was we said, hey, let's start our own development company, and we'll do development just like we've done in the past, and just like a lot of developers do in the city, focusing on market rate for now. And the only difference is of the profits that we make as developers, we'll donate 33%. It's not even that hard. And what we found is...
You'd be surprised. Some people think it's amazingly difficult to make a buck anywhere in Philadelphia, but continue, please.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a lot of, they say the innocence of youth talking, and, maybe we were in over our heads, and, maybe we weren't thinking long-term about it, but we just said, hey, that's what we're going to do, and this is how we connect it to, and we're going to give back that way. And if we don't start off with the rule now, and we say, once we do a little bit better, we'll eventually give back. We've seen it all time and time again. It doesn't happen all the time. So we knew we had to put something in place in the beginning.
Most developers will say, oh, we're going to be really good for the community. We're going to beautify it. We're going to be giving so much money to local programs, this, that, the other. They have all of these promises. And then once the building gets made, sometimes the promises get swept under the rug. They'll promise like, oh, we're going to do 35% affordable housing units. And then as the project progresses, they'll say, oh, well, we're only going to do 25%. And then whoever brokered the deal, maybe it's like the city if it's a bigger development or something, they kind of just have to suck it up and say like, okay, well, I mean, they're doing a good thing. They're well on their way. Maybe 25%, maybe 15% isn't so bad.
Yeah, so there is a lot of nuance to that. And, it's something we struggle with because development is very difficult. And it, as much as like we'd like to promise that things are going to happen X way, market conditions or something that happens in the land, something that happens in construction, so many things can change during the process. So, you're right, that does happen, and maybe sometimes it's the developer's fault, sometimes he's just in a bad position and he truly does have to kind of go back on his word.
Right, just to make the numbers work out a little bit better.
Yeah. Because you always have to make a return, otherwise things aren't sustainable.
Well, development is a business, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you have to be doing it if you're going to provide the work, right? If you're going to hire all of your project managers, all of your construction workers, that kind of thing. The numbers have to work, otherwise projects get abandoned and nobody wants something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of answering your second question there, like, we aren't, with this model, right, we're not specific about site selection. And, since we started a company, we've seen things work the other way around. And it's, in a way, how we've done business together. And we say, to either it's a private seller or we also worked with the Philadelphia Housing Authority.
Right.
We said, hey, you're selling a property, you're selling a piece of land on the market. This is the price you're looking for, and back when real estate market was really hot, you would get 10, 15, 20 offers.
Right.
And what we would do is we'd put in an offer, we would say who we are, and we'd put the offer out and see what happens. And what we've heard time and time and again on many of the transactions that we've done is, hey, your offer was very similar to many of the other offers we received. But if I was going to pick someone and I was going to pick a developer who I thought would actually do right by the land and do right in the way they've done business, it's by far you guys. And, out of all the offers I have, even though you're matching everyone else, or even if we were a little bit below, we've been the developers that were chosen to buy that property or buy that land. And we've kind of seen it the other way, where we're not picking sites, but people are picking us as good stewards and as good developers
of the community. No, that's really interesting because it's not always that way, You can look at a parcel of land and say, oh man, it's not viable. This shell in South Philadelphia is viable unless I can get it for X amount. What you end up doing is going through with a purchase, kind of being competitive, or at least competitive enough, but then people see the work that you guys are doing and the promises that you're making and your ability to keep good on those promises, and so they choose you.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is great, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we say if you're going to sell to any developer, it's in a project that we do have the ability to take on. We say by far we're the best because we do right in the work that we do on the day to day, and we have this huge social component to our company. We would be the best choice, and we hope we can kind of prove that. It's very hard in the beginning sometimes, but with growing our track record, I think we'll be able to show that we are one of the better developers in the city, and we desperately need that.
So with that said, are there any big projects that you guys are looking to do as you expand your portfolio and your consulting base? And are you thinking potentially in the future of mixing in more things like affordable housing units and that kind of thing? Or what does the future look like in 2023, 2024 for you guys?
So yeah, definitely yes to all of those factors. We've recently actually started doing our own construction. And that's been a huge thing that was very important for us.
Not just outsourcing it to a subcontractor, correct?
Correct. Not outsourcing to a third-party contractor. We've had good experiences with third-party contractors, but one thing we realized that if we're going to be the developer and we're going to be building in our community, the one big thing and the most contentious part of the cycle is during construction.
Yeah.
And if we're not there to be able to handle it and be the people that are the ground people, dealing with any issues that can happen, dealing with communications and...
Yeah, you want to be good stewards, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to just be banging at all hours of the night, past 5 o'clock, everybody hates you, people are throwing trash into your site, that kind of... I gotcha.
Yeah, we have to control that. So that's a huge thing for us in 2023 is we, kicking off construction, doing more projects in-house. And then also we are looking at other models because we recently also started doing a lot more consulting work. So just like we do development for our own projects, we help other owners and other developers basically develop their projects in the same capacity from start to finish, meaning from acquisition, from when you're looking at a potential property or land, how do you analyze it, how do you run your feasibility, what do you pay, all the way to getting your building permits, getting your zoning permits, putting your plans in place, bidding out those plans with subcontractors, and then working through construction as well. We handled the same end-to-end process for other developers as well. And what that has allowed us to do is not just make a big social impact in the projects that we have. We do have limited resources and limited amount of projects we can take on ourselves.
Right.
But we can now kind of do this with more projects in the city just by lending our development hand. So that's been a big component of our company in the last year or two, and we're really looking to ramp up the consulting side as well.
Now, when you do the consulting services, does any of that kind of profit that you guys make it from that also go back into helping with nonprofits and that kind of thing?
Yeah. What our model is extremely simple. All the profits that we make as partners, 33% gets donated. After expenses, but 33% of our profits get donated. So whether we make our money through consulting, we make it in development, all the same. So yeah.
No like slush fund anywhere, anything where you say, okay, well I'm paying myself this much money. When I say our, I mean our, not the company. Gotcha.
No slush fund.
I think that's admirable because a lot of people, they say, oh, it's almost like greenwashing in a way where they say, oh, we're really doing so much good for the community or for someone, insert someone here. And then it's like, what did you do? It's like a tax write-off for you. And you got a rebate here, there, that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, like I'll give you some real challenges that we have in this model is like, well, where do we leave room for ourselves for reinvesting back into the company? What about if we're not able to, we don't have enough cash to truly make the donation that we thought we were going to be able to, something just left field happened, and that happened for one of us on a project. We're not perfect, but what we do say is that this commitment that we've taken on, it's a lifelong commitment.
Right.
So if we, some reason we weren't able to do 33% of our profits in that year, whatever portion we weren't able to, well, we're going to make it up as soon as we can. And it gives us a little bit of leeway because sometimes things go wrong and it's
of course
for us to keep structured. But
well, that's what you learn in project management is you have all of these ideas of what you think is going to happen. You think you're going to buy this house for this much money, or you think that you're going to deliver a pizza and it's going to take 30 minutes. But it doesn't always take 30 minutes. Sometimes you end up in a traffic jam, and sometimes you have to overpay for something and you have that risk. Yeah. But it sounds like you guys aren't abandoning that risk, which is really important.
No, and you can't, right? It's like development changes every day. Our business model is a very risky model. But all we can say is that this is our commitment. We're going to do this for life. If we can't do it right now, we will make up for it. And even in the way we do development, it's the same thing. Like sometimes, we can't add an affordable housing component to a project. Doesn't mean that we're bad people and we're bad developers. It's just that project can't support it, and that's the reality of it.
Right.
So you have to trust that on a day-to-day. We will try to do the right thing, and I think that's been a lot of why developers aren't seen in a great light, because it's very tough to be a real estate developer, and there's a lot of different moving factors that happen, and sometimes things you say can't really play out in real life. And sometimes it's not your fault, but it's all about having good principles and making your decisions behind those good principles. And as long as you can kind of hold that to yourself, and then also hold that in the way that we interact with our community and we interact with all our stakeholders, that's the best that we can ask for. We're not perfect, but we will try to do right, whether that's in the moment or whether that's, in a day, or whether that's in the following year. If we can't make a donation today, we'll try to make it as soon as we can. We do kind of have that leeway of if something goes wrong, we do have those. We need those. We need those outs. Yeah.
It sounds like transparency and communication is really important to you guys, and I can see why. If you don't have that integrity, then you might as well just be shoveling money away. But like saying, oh, we missed our mark by this much, but like we're going to make it up in the future. Trust us. That's really reassuring. I was just curious if I could get your perspective like on the landscape of developing around Philly. You were talking about how some projects might not allow for like some affordable housing units. I'm just curious, like with your eye, if you had something like a 40-unit property, how much do you think you can reasonably like make a profit, but then have housing units set aside at more of an affordable non-market rate?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, without breaking out like an Excel document, right?
Yeah. So, okay, if I say there was a piece of land, right, and we wanted to build 40 units,
Yeah.
and the intention was that we were asked to provide a percentage of the units as affordable housing.
Hmm.
Well, the way to look at it is really pretty straightforward. What in any business, but especially in real estate development, there's a profit that needs to be made. In development, I would say it's 15%. Right? We need to make 15% and that's the return we should get for the risk that's being put out there. That's a pretty standard metric. Okay, so we need to make 15%. And that's 15% over the life of the project, and that's 10% per year in rental cash flow. Okay, so if we have this piece of land and we're buying it for X price, and these are the rents in the area, and if I underwrite it and it's at 30%, okay, well, I think I could bring some more affordable units here, and I'll drop it to the 15 to 20. I think a lot of people, if their numbers were very transparent,
Yeah.
and if people in the community saw that, how the numbers are shaping out, because they're pretty straightforward at the core of it. It would be very easy to have an open discussion and dialogue around it. So I think if you're looking at how much percentage of affordable housing can we put, well, it's case to case. It's always based on what you buy the property for and what you buy the land for and what the zoning allows you to. But if we're open about, well, whoever buys this is going to have to make at least X return. So what can we do with the project? How much percent affordable can we have to hit that return? And it would be pretty clear and pretty easy if we were just open about that.
Yeah, you add a unit and you say, oh, well, maybe one affordable housing unit is going to bring down our profit 5%. So in that case, you could add maybe 3 units or something like that, it sounds like.
Yeah, that would be the way to do it. It's, keeping behind closed doors, it's kind of hard to say, well, does this guy want to make 30% and does this guy want to make 15? But this 15% guy is not in the picture, so this other developer is saying, well, I can't provide any affordable housing. That happens. But what we're seeing a lot with where things are right now is construction costs are at all-time high. Land prices haven't come down. Even if there is a required percentage of affordable housing required in a project in a certain zoning district, we've noticed and we've underwritten recently where I can't even come close to making even just 10% affordable units work. And that's the reality of it. So I can't put an offer on that piece of land. Either price has to come down or we need to reduce the percentage of affordability. That does happen a lot, and it also works the other way.
It's really interesting too when you work in giving some of your profits away and how you maintain a competitive advantage in that market, because you're basically saying if you're adding 3 affordable housing units or something, that we could be making 45% profit, but now we're only going to make, I don't know, something like 20, right? Because we're good guys. But this other developer, he's going to jump on that project, he's going to make X amount of money, and then he's going to use that money 3 years from now, and he's going to be twice as big as we are.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, how do you guys maintain that balance too? Or is it just something that you kind of sequester in your mind and you just say, we're doing the right thing?
So that's a great question. I think we try to be our first and foremost responsibility is to be really skilled developers.
Yeah.
If we're not skilled developers and that we don't know how to take things on a case-by-case basis and know how to sometimes maximize this project, otherwise another developer will get it. And not just another developer will get it, but we're not competitive on that deal, and it's not going to work out. So we have to be really skilled in what we do. We do have to balance maximizing real estate with also maximizing, and helping the community locally, building quality, all those things. And that balance, I couldn't even tell you certain things that there's never always a certain list of things that you need to do. It's always case by case, and it's project by project. But you have to be on your A game at all times, and that's the only way we find balance. Is we put our best foot forward, and also this kind of it leads me to another thing, and another reason why I think we will do really well, and we've done really well, and we will continue to do really well in the future, is that this model that we have, it's great, right? We're doing it for ourselves. We donate a portion of our profits, and we feel energized every day. But think about, in real estate development, how many people are involved with the project. So just say we have a 9-unit project in Fishtown that we're working on.
This is the Moyer? Is that?
This is Nova Flats.
Okay, Nova Flats.
Avenue.
Gotcha.
That one project probably has, throughout the course of the project, almost more than 50 people working on it. And we as developers, we're not the architects, we're not making the design, we're not doing the engineering documents, we're not handling the permitting. We're not doing much of the day-to-day work. We're hiring this team to help us there. And how does a project become successful? Well, it's the quality of the team that we put together.
Right.
So the way our development process works is we find a property, we find a piece of land that we'd like to acquire, and once we put it under contract, we assemble our team together. So we went to our architect and said, hey, we're looking at this site. These are some of the social goals that we have as a company. For this project, we actually want to help cure people with preventative blindness.
Right.
And we just set a really high level. That's kind of what our investor is interested in. That's what we're interested in. So that's the mission we want to have. But this is also the way this is how we underwrote the project, this is how we think it will work.
Right.
So we take that to our architect and we said, that's what we're looking for. And he said, first of all, wow, I love your social mission. I'm going to donate 10% of my proposal as an architect of this project to that social mission. And yeah, I would love to be a part of it. And our engineering team did the same thing. And money aside and their donations aside, what we're really able to do and change is we have this project with a social mission of curing 350 people from preventative blindness, and this entire 50-person team is working with the energy of making that happen. It's not to make a profit for the investors and for the developers only. It's for this social goal, and the better we do in this project, the more people we can help. And now think about the energy and the spirit of this entire team. We carry it every day, and also everyone who's actually instrumental in doing the true work to make this project successful is putting their best foot forward, because this project is way beyond profit for the investor and profit for the owner. It's the better we do, we have a bigger social impact.
Right. You're beginning kind of with the end in mind in that way, and everybody is aligned on the mission.
Yeah, and that gives us a cutting edge in that we're bringing out the best of the best of people on our team, and that allows us to also have a great project that we put together.
And if I go work on your new construction team, I have to put 10% towards the project too, right? Just right out the gate?
It's not a requirement by any means.
I didn't think so. I don't think that's legal.
No, it came,
but out of the goodness of your heart, if you wanted to.
Yeah, we didn't ask. They volunteered, and we never had the intention that other people had to join. But on the very first project we did as a company, the architect, Kano Design Day, they volunteered. And that was great, because it told us, like, hey, people actually care about this, especially in the development industry. I never seen that side, so this was awesome. Right,
especially when you focus on commercial multifamily units, it's always about the numbers.
Yeah.
It's very different from residential, where you might like the property itself. It just really fits your vibe. I mean, I swear sometimes if you go to a commercial unit, it's like people don't even see the building. They just see like what net they're going to have after the project finishes up.
Yeah.
So
it's like I couldn't. You have to put your blood, sweat, and tears in this industry, into every project, to see like to kind of just operate like in a hey, this is how much the project's gonna make, and we're gonna refinance, and we're gonna move on. Like you will. I've lost energy, and I've lost
Oh,
I've
sure.
lost so much passion for what I did in that process. It's hard to just kind of move with that.
Well, it's easy too to lose energy when there are obstacles that you don't expect. Like on our deal, we were ready to go, right? That was one of the longest deals we've ever had, and we were always right there, at the finish line, kind of waiting to cross it. But when you put, hundreds of $1,000s out there at risk, I understand why. When you have obstacles of, okay, well maybe, the city hasn't like gone through our LLC documents yet. We're waiting on this person to deliver some documents and get this signed. Like it can be really disheartening. So it must feel really nice having that kind of momentum pushing you forward with the mission.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think about our deal all the time, right? It's something that both of us didn't have any control over, but that's real estate. That's how things work. But what did we do well is we were transparent with each other. I told you things from my end as a buyer that, how am I seeing a delay in closing every day? What are we doing on our side? Because we had a lot of things that we were fronting, and I told you that every day, and you also told me, well, here's what I'm doing. It's might not. I'm trying my best, but I couldn't, get that document that we needed for closing. I'm gonna try tomorrow, and it took a couple of weeks, but we did talk to each other very transparently. If everyone did business that way,
oh my God, you can imagine how much more productive everybody would be.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh my God, I gotta dodge this call.
Literally, obstacles happen, but we can move way past beyond those if we just communicate transparently. Like that was very clear, and I think that's why things worked out for us, right? We stayed true to what we needed to do. We were open and honest, and it wasn't. I felt really good throughout the process, and I'm sure it worked for your end as well. So. Oh,
definitely.
You have to do business like that, otherwise, it's impossible. It's too many obstacles to keep in your head, and then you're playing.
I totally agree, and then you're like, oh, well, I said this, but this is really the case, and it's just like, if everyone knew everything, like, would anybody be mad? And it's like, okay, let's just have everything out in the open. I was gonna ask, like, maybe one of our last questions would be, approaching this from when you guys first started, is there anything you guys wish you knew that you know now?
That we wish we knew that we knew now. A lot. Yeah.
What's your highest priority on that? You're kind of delivering like a message in the bottle or an email, and it can only be so many characters back to your past self.
Yeah, I think
regarding development, you can't have like lotto numbers or anything crazy in there.
Yeah, no, regarding development, I think one thing for sure, all three of us, we came from modest means. We didn't come from super rich families or super connected families, but we didn't come from, we were all upper middle class families, right?
Sure.
And we started this company, and we're saying we're going to do our own projects. We raised money on our first project, and we went tooth and nail to find investors for our first project. We went to all our friends and we said, hey, would you put $5,000 in? It's a great deal. We're going to put all our time and energy into it. And we went to almost 20 of our friends and tried to do that. And it worked out, and we had so much confidence after that. And we're like, yeah, let's keep doing projects. We found a second one, and same thing. And one thing I wish I knew when we first started is that it's very difficult without financial resources behind you and connections to say that you're just going to do your own projects.
Yeah.
100% focus there. You also need to provide services that create income for you as well, outside of just your own projects. I think, and I listen to a lot of podcasts and I would read a lot of books about getting started in real estate, and everyone always talks about buy your first deal and then leverage it to the max. So that
For
you
your
have
second
enough
one.
cash to do your second.
Yeah.
And I learned that is not the right method because you're taking so much risk for the sake of doing it yourself. Sometimes it might be a little bit slower. You might not be able to take on as many of your own projects, and that's entirely okay because it's more important to focus on how you're doing each project than it is how many projects that you're doing. And we were sometimes at a point where we had so much on our plate and we were not doing the best work on each project just because we were so busy and so focused on let's do as many of our own projects as we can. Looking back on it, I wish we did, we were okay with being a little bit more patient because that's what the industry requires.
Right, and by doing so, you solve issues later down the road, right? You don't say like, oh, why did we lay out X this way? Because now it's really harder to do Y.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And, and especially with development, like you fix a problem in a single family house, that same problem, comes around in that 50 unit building. So you kind of wish you spent that time understanding that, hey, here's this house, here's all the problems I went through, now I can apply it to 50 more units.
Right.
And it's that same one problem at scale. And, that's a lot of real estate too. So whether it's small or big, dive into the details and take your time with it if that's what it requires for you to dive into the details. But it's so important that you do that.
Definitely. Oh, I definitely agree. So how many projects are you guys currently dealing with now in 2023? And how many are kind of like expected to finish up this year? Because I know sometimes you say, okay, we just bought this in 2022, we're going to finish July of 2023, something like that. What are you guys projecting right now?
Yeah, so we have, I'll have to think about this. So we have 6 projects that we're working on at Temple University. Ours is one of them.
Right.
So 2 of them are currently under construction and 4 are scheduled to be delivered by next school year. We have a project in Old Kensington that is slated to finish this spring. It's been around 1.5 years since we started on that project, and very, very excited for it because that project is our baby. We have a project in University City that's also scheduled to finish in the spring, and those are our own internal projects, and then we have a lot of consulting work that we're working on. So we're doing a 31 unit building in Callow Hill near Vine Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that permit is about soon to come and the project's soon to start. We're excited about that one. We worked on a couple of single family housing communities in Graduate Hospital, and a couple other consulting projects that are kind of splattered all across the city, but those are between that consulting work and then these internal projects. That's pretty much our roadmap and our pipeline for this year.
It sounds like big things are happening.
Yeah, it's fun. We one project at a time, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. So for us, it's never about now we learn it's not about how many projects you have. It's how much fun you're having in each one.
And your mindset as you do each project, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.